attorneys are present, both defense counsel and Mr. Sievers.
And Your
States.
Honor, yes, we are. But Your Honor, I just wanted to, I did an account, and we've done 10 yesterday, 6 today, 3 tomorrow. Somehow there was my math was off. It will be a total of 19.
Okay.
But I just wanted to alert the court, because I had said 20, and it will be 19.
Yeah, I guess it will be 6 then. States ready?
Yes, sir.
Defense is ready?
Yes, sir.
Bring them out. Please be seated. I'll ask our jurors again that you follow my instructions, not talk about the case among yourselves with anybody else or look up any of the people or places involved. Even if you did so inadvertently, now would be the time to raise your hand and let me know. For the record, no jurors lifted their hand. Next witness.
State calls Mike Lacombe.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Can you please state your full name for the record?
Michael Lacombe,
And can you spell your last name for the court reporter?
Lacombe,
And where are you employed, sir?
with the Lee County Sheriff's Office.
And in what capacity are you employed with the Lee County Sheriff?
I'm a digital forensic specialist.
And as a digital forensic specialist, sir, what are your duties?
We examine cell phones, computers, GPS units, anything that might have data on it.
And what kind of training did you have to complete in order to be a digital forensic specialist?
I went to a 2-week class and had to pass a 2-part certification exam to obtain what's called a CFCE, Certified Forensic Computer Examiner.
And do you undergo any ongoing or additional training as well in forensic examination,
I do, yes.
specifically with regards to electronic devices?
Yes.
Are there specific types of programs or software that you employ when you're conducting forensic examinations of electronic devices?
There is, yes.
What kind of software?
We use a few main ones. Celebrite, which is a tool for examining cell phones, data cards, GPSs, things like that. NCase and X-Ways are used for examining mainly computer hard drives.
And in order to use the Cellbrite, did you have to complete any specific training in order to use the Cellbrite?
Not in order to use it, but I did go ahead and take 2 classes and completed an examination, and I have a CCME, which is a Celebrite Certified Mobile Examiner.
And what about NCase? Did you take do any kind of training in order to be able to use NCase?
I did 2 weeks worth of training for that as well.
And how many times have you used, we'll start first with NCase. Approximately, if you can remember, how many times have you used NCase to conduct a forensic examination of a device?
I would say a few hundred, probably 300 or so, plus times.
How many times have you used Cellbrite to conduct a forensic examination of an electronic device?
Roughly 1,200 or so.
And let's talk specifically about GPS units. How many times have you used NCase to do an examination of a GPS unit?
That, not too often, once, maybe twice.
And what about Cellbrite? How many times have you used Cellbrite to do an examination of a GPS unit?
Roughly 5 to 10.
Now, during the investigation of the homicide case involving the homicide investigation of Teresa Sievers, did you and other members of the Digital Forensics Unit participate in that investigation?
Yes.
Specifically regarding one of be more specific, regarding a Garmin GPS unit that was recovered during that investigation. Did you work with Mr. DeShazo in doing a forensic examination of that Garmin unit?
I did, yes.
Now, did you forensically examine the Garmin unit itself, or did you examine a file provided to you from the Garmin unit by Mr. DeShazo?
I examined the file that was given to me by Mr. DeShazo.
And I'm going to show you what's been previously entered as exhibit number 108, which I should not have given back. And I'll also show you what's been previously identified as number 106, which I should be up here. Number 106 as well. All right, I'll start first with number 108, and I'll put 106 up here on deck. And does 108 contain the digital file that was provided to you by Mr. DeShazo as the two of you worked on the data from that Garmin unit?
I would have to look at the data on the disk. I don't believe it contains the complete download of the GPS that I started with.
And what does 108 contain?
It says Garmin GPS data and timeline. So that would be a copy of State's Exhibit 106.
Okay. 106 is the timeline?
That is correct, yes.
And let's talk about the timeline. The timeline also has some entries on it, right?
It does.
And did you also participate in making some entries on that timeline?
I did, yes.
And what entries? Well, let me back up. Did you and Mr. DeShazo conduct different duties or do different things regarding the Garmin GPS data? It's not my fault.
We had different main focuses. Sometimes that would overlap, and we would double check each other. But the main focus was different for each of us.
And is it safe to say you focus a little bit more on the deleted files?
Yes.
Now, can you explain to the jury if a file is deleted from the data file from the Garmin unit, how are you able to still work on it if it's deleted?
So
It's
when
like a contradiction in terms.
right. So there's two different terms that we use in our field. It's deleted and overwritten. If something is deleted, basically the pointer, or if you look at it as though a table of contents in a book, the entry for that is deleted, but the actual page in the book is still there. So if you know where to go, you can go to that page and the data will still be there. You just don't have that pointer to tell you that that file is there. Overwritten would be is if that page has been overwritten with new data, and then an entry, the entry would also be deleted for that as well.
And so you were working on finding those pages from the book within the Garmin unit that maybe had been deleted but were still present within the Garmin unit.
That's correct.
And did you locate data from within the Garmin unit that had been marked for deletion,
Yes.
but it was still within the unit?
Yes.
And did you put that information on your on the spreadsheet as well?
Yes, that information's here.
And you and Mr. DeShazo collaborated on that spreadsheet?
That's correct.
And is that what's depicted in Exhibit 106?
It is, yes.
Your Honor, this time the state would admit State's Exhibit number 106.
No objection.
Showed admitted.
Now, we understand that you, at some point, the team reached out to Garmin USA. Did you also have an opportunity to examine, did you also participate in examining files received from Garmin USA?
I looked through them briefly, yes.
And when you looked through them, did you locate an email address associated with some type of a data connection between the Garmin unit in evidence and the Garmin USA servers?
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
guess the question is, did you find a Gmail address in the
I-
Garmin USA records?
I did, yes.
And what was the Gmail address you found?
I apologize. I know it began with Jimmy Ray Rogers. I believe there was a number and then at gmail.com.
Does Jimmy Ray Rogers 90@gmail.com sound familiar?
Yes, that's the one.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would admit as a self-authenticating business record the Google records for Jimmy Ray Rogers 90@gmail.com. And that
Number?
would be State's Exhibit number 99.
Your Honor, for the record, I'd like to renew all prior business records objections.
All prior objections are noted for the record, overruled, will show it admitted.
And Mr. Lacombe, what are some of the ways that the data gets deleted from that Garmin unit?
Data can be deleted in two main ways. One, either the user chooses to delete it, like on a computer if you choose to delete a Word document. And then there are other ways where, say for instance, you go on the internet and you generate temporary internet files. After a period of time, that data is deleted by itself automatically.
What effect, if any, does powering the unit on and off have on data within the Garmin unit?
It can delete the, well, in the case of the Garmin, when you turn it off, it will, the trip log is placed in a hold, so it's ready to be deleted and overwritten with possible new trips that are created when the unit is powered back on.
Now, I understand that Mr. DeShazo obtained an identical Garmin unit to do testing on it.
Correct.
Outside of the lab.
Yes,
Did you also participate in that testing?
I did, yes.
And did you also test powering the unit off and powering it back on to see what happened to the data?
Yes.
And when you powered it off and powered it back on, did you notice the changes in the trip data that you were talking about earlier?
Yes, some of them.
So, if that Garmin unit is, let's say I put in a destination to navigate to the courthouse, right? Put
Okay.
in Courthouse, Lee County Justice Center, and I start navigating. Then on the way here, I stop at the convenience store to buy a soda. And I power off the unit to go inside to buy a soda. Come back out and I decide I'm not going to go to the courthouse, that I want to go somewhere else. So I program the GPS unit to go somewhere else and not to the courthouse. What happens to the trip that I had originally put in there to go to the courthouse? Does it get deleted or does it stay in the Garmin unit?
No, the trip would be deleted, still accessible to a forensic specialist to examine it. But when the unit would be powered back on, it would get a GPS location of the current location. And then when you enter that new address, it would create a route from your current location to that destination.
So the data would be marked for deletion, like you said. A table of contents would be marked for deletion, but that page containing that trip data might still be in the Garmin.
Correct, it might still be.
Your Honor, we tender the witness.
Defense,
No question, Your Honor.
witness to be released or retained.
He's free to go, Your Honor.
Released, Your Honor.
Sir, you're free to go.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Good morning.
We, ready? With that, we've run out of witnesses for the day. It's my fault. It's hard to get people in here this time of year, even if you have a judge threatening them. I suspect tomorrow we'll have the same situation. We'll be done by lunch, which probably tomorrow is a better day than today. So I'm going to ask that you not talk about the case among yourselves with anybody else or look up any of the people or places involved. And we'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:30, and we should be done probably about the same time tomorrow. Please be seated. 3 for tomorrow then?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and following the break on Monday, do you have everybody you have left coming in?
Yes,
Or-
we have everybody we have left coming in on Monday.
Okay.
We just are not sure that we would actually finish them on Monday, but if we can go through them all on, I believe we've got them all coming in on Monday. Is there one person who's coming in only on Tuesday? I think
As
they're
far
all,
as I know, we will check that.
We'll
After
confirm.
we're done tomorrow,
we have everybody coming in on Monday.
5 left.
5 left on Monday, potentially?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, sir.
I would prefer if you have everybody there in case we finish early rather than later on Tuesday. I would just ask the defense be ready then no later than, I don't, it doesn't sound like we'll get to anybody from the defense side on Monday, but Tuesday. Have you talked to your client yet?
Yes, and Judge, I do plan on recalling several of the state's witnesses. I would like to have them available to review some of our proposed exhibits. It's just, I don't want to have them get here having not spoken to them, and then we have to send the jury out, do a kind of a proper review right there, and it just, if they could just make themselves available.
How many?
I think, oh, that's a tough one. I know what exhibits I want. Definitely Mr. Stout. I do plan on recalling Mr. Wright's. Okay, my boss said 5. I'm sorry?
Are there any, other than Mr. Wright, who's in is there anybody else in custody other than Mr. Wright?
No,
I'm just checking, I don't know. Because I think the state had 3 times what they actually called in this trial and the other, so. Would assume you would want Mr. Wright transported here Tuesday morning then?
Yes, that's fine.
I just want to make sure because the transport's,
Judge, we assumed responsibility for, we had a protocol for getting him here, so we assumed responsibility upon notice for getting him here. We do need to notify his attorney so she can be here as well. And so if we know that it'll be Tuesday, or if we know it'll be Wednesday, it's easier to contact her just in case she has any.
Well, let me ask the defense this, are you calling anybody other than, potentially your client, but are you calling anybody other than those 5?
Yes, we have one additional defense witness, Monica Lyons,
So you have a total of 6, and if your client testifies, potentially 7.
potentially, yes.
And it sounds like those may be able to be gone through in one day, so I would assume have him up here on Tuesday morning.
I anticipate that these witnesses will go relatively quickly. I anticipate that most of these witnesses will be used to authenticate and enter various exhibits that we have that obviously, when it's the state's case in chief, it's not our turn to present evidence, but there still are authenticating witnesses. I do anticipate that these witnesses will go through them relatively quickly. And I can't foresee the state having extensive cross-examinations on these witnesses when, for the most part, I'm just going to be laying foundations, moving things into evidence, and moving on.
And the only reason I ask is because when you were saying Tuesday or Wednesday, it would seem to me then that Mr. Wright would be needed on Tuesday. Morning preferably.
And I was just saying, and Your Honor, one of the things we'll do, since we have the time today, take advantage of, is that, given the document that the defense initially handed to Casey Stout, and then the state's display of, I think it's numbered State's Exhibit 25, the state has asked that Mr. Stout prepare a cell right extraction just with the communications between Mr. Wright and Mr. Sievers, and I'll be talking with defense counsel so that we may actually be able to, we may not be able to, but just so the court's aware, we're gonna take advantage of this time to see what we can do to make things, any of those concerns be addressed before court.
Well, of course, if you guys stipulate that streamlines everything, so if you can, you can, if you can't,
And
you
if we
can't.
can't, we can't.
But we'll have Mr. Wright here Tuesday morning then, and because I think that'd be the earliest we'd get to him. Regardless, we'll need him here Tuesday probably at some point anyway, because I imagine you'll wrap up Tuesday at lunchtime, probably at the latest.
That certainly appeared, yes, Your Honor, yes. At the latest,
yeah.
that would appear to be the case right now.
I would ask that the defense in the interim as well, I know you said you've already talked to your client, but I would ask that you, if you have any, you have to talk to him again about whether or not he would like to testify or not testify, probably over the weekend, might be a good time to do that.
And Your Honor, just for the record, I have explained that the decision to testify or not testify is exclusively Mr. Sievers' decision. And so whatever decision we get to, I just want to make the court aware that that will be because that is what Mr. Sievers has decided.
That'll be clear on the record. I ask every defendant before we get to that point, and when generally they're the last person if they're going to get called, we go through that on the record outside of the presence of the jury and make sure that they've had enough time to talk to you about that issue. Make sure that they understand that it is their decision, not yours, that you only give them advice. So we'll make sure that's very clear on the record either way. Okay. See everybody tomorrow morning at 8:30.
Thank you.